It is indeed a pleasure to have you. We look forward to spending some time with you, discussions that the panel is going to have, and then be thinking yourselves about those questions that you would like to ask this special group of women, because we want you to participate as well. Before we do begin, I want to ask my colleagues to allow me one moment. You know, I spend my life on this campus in all the best ways, so I certainly want to celebrate and let you know of things that are happening here at HBU. We are celebrating for the next 18 months our 60th anniversary. Isn't that amazing? I talked to an alumnus a few minutes ago who was just overwhelmed with the things that are going on campus. And so we plan to celebrate, to acknowledge the founding of the university during this time. And we are so grateful. We're grateful for our 3 presidents, and certainly for the present leadership of Dr. Sloan and our 10 Pillars vision. If you've never read it, go to the website, check out the 10 Pillars. It is being expanded soon, and it really is unique for a university to have a master plan like this that students, faculty, staff, and business leaders have participated in. So we thank you for being here. I do want to acknowledge 2 of our past board members, 2 women in the audience, if they would just wave, Madeline Collier and Dr. Aline Lucas. They have both been instrumental in various phases of HBU's history. And as Dr. Holt mentioned, we're so thrilled to have Sue Sloan here. I think if you tried to create a job description or a job title for the wife of the president on our campus, it would be the most entrepreneurial job description you could ever imagine. So we're so glad you're here, Sue. And with that, I want to begin with a question to my colleagues here and really ask each of you, Tina, maybe we'll start with you and then go down the table. What motivated you to pursue this entrepreneurial path that you've been on? You've been on it for a few years. So maybe each of you could speak a little bit about that to us.
Yeah, thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tina Murray. I own Mind Dance Marketing. It is a advertising brand management agency. We're based here in Houston, Texas. But I think to answer that appropriately, I'd have to say it's 2 parts, because I started my business when I was 26. And so the first part was just part just being naive, part being just a little ignorant, and part being really bold. And that chemistry was sometimes powerful and sometimes just really detrimental to me. But the other part of my start was my parents are both entrepreneurs. And so as soon as there was an opportunity for me to step out, they expedited that for me. My mom owns a printing company, and so I had logo business cards. My dad has a phone company, so I had all the technology. Back in the day, it was a pager and a cell phone that was like this big. But I had one, and my uncle is a real estate developer, and so he gave me an office inside one of his buildings. And so lots of people were rallying around me to say, you can do this. And so I think together those things. And I think one of the big things about starting a business is that I never did that on my own. I asked questions and I sought answers, and the moment that I thought I could do it by myself is exactly when it was revealed to me that I really couldn't and that I shouldn't. And people stood up behind me and said, okay, ding dong, stop doing that. And I would say, this is what I want to do. And they would say, that is not going to work. And now I can look back, we're 21 years in business, and I can look back and say, I was a ding dong, right? And I can wear that label because it's part of my journey. But people look at me now and say, wow, you've achieved a lot. But I struggled a lot, and I suffered a lot, and I worked myself, into the bone a lot. And so where I am now is a end result of a lot of people on my journey with me, helping me be the best Tina and the best Mind Dance.
Great. Bonnie, do you want to take that?
I do, but first, I want to tell you what an honor it is to be at this university. This is the best university in America. We give all the honor, praise, and glory to God our Father, Jesus our Lord and Savior, and the Holy Spirit that guides us each day on our path. And this is the best university in the United States. I believe that totally. I was here, I'm dating myself, I was here when the pillars were installed. I was 10 when I started. So, anyway, okay. So basically, I came out of university and went the corporate route. And I was in corporate management for 12 years. I had the fortune or misfortune to be there when the oil industry went kaput. And I watched them lay everyone 55 and older off. And at a young age, I said, that will not be me. And that was a commitment that I kept. So I was in the process of getting one of the first executive MBAs here at university at HBU, which complements to HBU for doing that because we work full time and did the MBA alongside. Okay, so perfect timing. I got my MBA and I started my business. I'll tell you when, December 1984. I just dated myself. 36 years ago. And it's a marketing design business, and I was determined, forgive me corporate people, not to have anything to do with corporate, okay? But the company I worked for called me back to do a lot of work for them because they laid everybody off. So it did build the business from 0 to $1 million in 3 years. But I branched out, okay? So what motivated me? I wasn't going to be put in the position to be like those people that were laid off. They were a number on a piece of paper, and I had a goal and a commitment and a commission from God to bless people in business. That's my motivation. If I can't bless somebody by doing something, saying something, it's not me. So I'm not a corporate fan. I now own 3 businesses, and in the process of helping build the marketing structure for a brand new 4th business that I do not own, mentoring them. So I'm all for it.
Awesome. Okay, so my name's Leah, and I own 15,000 Cubits. I have had my business. I started my business 5 years ago. So I'm a baby up here, and I'm incredibly humbled. I'll explain a little bit about my company values and hopefully in future questions. But one of our values is having a growth mindset, and as a leader, I try to embody that and embrace it and push that forward through my own actions. And so just to let you know, I'm terrified right now. I'm really nervous, and I practice a lot, but I don't really know. Like, Bonnie grabbed my hand next to me, and when we were praying, and I'm just so thankful for you guys, and I'm so thankful for this opportunity and thankful to be here. So to tell you a little bit about how I pursued entrepreneurship, I didn't. God pursued entrepreneurship for me. An interesting fact is that a caterpillar has pieces of a butterfly in it before it dies and becomes a butterfly. And I feel like that's me. And in my story, about a while ago, I found myself, I grew up as a Christian. My mom raised me, I went to church, and I was a strong believer. I got far away from that, and I found myself in a doctor's office, hooked up to an EKG, and I had bulimia for 10 years, and he looked at me, and he was, really concerned because my heart rate was very low, and he said, I think you really need to go and live, I was in Memphis, I think you need to go and live with one of your parents because you're not safe right now. And so it was either Ohio or here, and I hate cold weather. So I made my way down to Texas, and so came down to Texas, and I kind of continued that journey. I was in a dark place, and continued with that eating disorder, and I was depressed and just not in a good place. And I got into a relationship, and then I found myself in a pregnancy crisis center. And I remember the moment. It was about 8 years ago. I remember the moment that there was a lady that was there volunteering, and she put her hand on my knee, and she said, "Can I pray for you?" And it had been the first time that somebody had prayed for me in over 10 years. And so she prayed for me, and I remember it felt like this spark, just this like feeling of home. And I was so terrified. And I started going to church, and I found my way to Second Baptist, and I started pursuing God, and didn't realize the whole time he'd been pursuing me all the way through. And through that, I really deepened my relationship with God. He found me, and I found my husband, who's here, and love of my life, and best thing ever. And so all that happened, and through that, God also put an opportunity of a job in my lap, and I dove into that with all I had. I got 6 promotions in that job. I was there for 5 years. I didn't realize it at the time, and for anybody that's looking to going into their career, I would ask you to have your eyes wide open to seeing leaders that are pouring into you, because we have this belief of what mentorship is, but really it's just somebody pouring into you. And so I had somebody pouring into me, and we got married. My husband and I came back 3 weeks later after the honeymoon, and she offered me my dream. She offered me the role of CMO at the company. It's now a $46 million company a few years later. And also she offered to send me to Rice for my MBA. And here at HBU, so I'm happy to say I turned it down. But I turned it down because I had just married the love of my life, and we blended a family together. And my God-given priorities were my family at that point, and I knew I couldn't say yes. But the fact of the matter is that's a door that if I'd been living for myself, I would have ran right through it. And so it was hard. It was one of the first times that I said no to a door because it was God's call in my life. And I said no to that door. And what God does for us, and what I found that he does for me, is that when I'm obedient and I don't walk through a door he doesn't want me to walk through, he opens another door. And so he opened a door for me to go into an agency where I deepened my technical skills. And then rather quickly, I picked up this book. And also that was an entrepreneur that had that business. So I got to watch him build it. And I got bit by the bug. I got the entrepreneurial itch. So I maybe pursued it, but not for very long. So I picked up a book and I started reading The E-Myth. If anybody's interested in entrepreneurship, I would highly suggest that book. And the E-Myth talks about starting with the end in mind. And I remember my husband and I talking about, I think that we want to start a business at some point. And we went on a run, and we were talking. That tells you how fast we run, by the way. We were having a full-blown conversation. And so we started talking about it, and we said, what are we going to do? And we just felt that we just saw this vision of a business. And I love what you said. We just saw this vision of pouring into, with my marketing skills and our gifts, pouring into churches and nonprofits and faith-based businesses and Christian entrepreneurs, and using technical marketing skills to enable them to put God's calling on their life out into the community. And we just felt that calling, and so we were like, we got to do this at some point, like probably 5 years from now, we're going to do this. And so we put the 5-year time frame on it, and we went and we started thinking about names, and the word faith kept coming up, and to me, faith, for some reason, I just kept also thinking about Noah. And when I thought about building a business, it seemed oversimplified to me. So I understand the naive thing. Very oversimplified. I was like, just like you build an ark, you build a business, but there's a lot more to it. So ark.com wasn't available. And my husband's really bright, so he realized that the ark was 15,000 cubits, and so then there's the company. And we had our company name, we bought the domain, and we said 5 years. And 5 days later, I got a 6-figure contract and the opportunity to start my business. And so the thing is that God's timing is different than ours, and God's timing is perfect, because that's 5 years ago. Fast forward today, I'm sitting here right now, and if we had put our timing on it and we hadn't been willing to go with his, we wouldn't be here. So,
and that's such a perfect integration of your faith in your work, and your transparency in what you encountered during that process is phenomenal. And that's what we want this audience to hear, is the journey that all of you have had. So thank you for sharing that. So Bonnie and Tina, why don't you share a little bit each about your faith and how that has been integrated in the work that you do?
Okay, I'll be real bold and clear. It's always God. If God's not in it, I'm not in it. And it's tough sometimes to be obedient to God, but what I really recommend is the first thing to do is at some early point in your life, figure out what your passion and your calling is, because that's from God. And once you know that, then you focus and stay on the path, God's path, to get you where your purpose is. And many of us, I wobbled. I'll tell you, I wobbled. I've got my family here. They've watched me wobble over the years, but I always knew I was heading right there for God. And so no matter where you are on your path in life, whether you're a student, particularly if you're a parent. I mean, I was a single parent for a good long time. So I'm going to tell you, God first, family second, career third. Do not jumble those, because your family is very important. God-given family. So, so I started my marketing design business, and it was wonderful. I loved it. I loved the freedom to work for God, to talk about God, and to do things for God, and not have to keep it under cover, under wraps. That's important to me. I think America needs more of that today. Don't you agree? It should never be under wraps. He's the number one. And in my opinion, that's what's missing in America, okay? So every one of you that's sitting out there, particularly young students that are looking at your future and you're wondering, what am I going to do? Figure it out and just follow the path. Learn, like the executive MBA or the MBA programs, all of the programs here are wonderful. So just create a plan, which is what I did. I had a plan and I walked it out. Did not know that God was going to drop me into another business that would allow me to be there for my daughter and go to all the events and pick her up from school and take her to school. That's a cherished time in the life of a woman, a mom. So that's very important. And I walked that path. I was actually trained by Mary Kay Ash herself, which find a mentor that you value and trust, that's walked the path, and you can trust them and just do what they suggest. And just recently, God opened another door, and it's a natural company called Monate. So that's the third company that I own right now. So, am I answering your question?
Yes, and you know what, Bonnie, I can't imagine, but there could be someone who does not know.
Who Mary Kay Ash is.
Perish the thought.
Oh,
Who
seriously?
Mary Kay Ash is. So would you
millennials
mind
aren't gonna know
sharing?
She's in heaven as of November 2001, but she was the world's leading female entrepreneur. And she took God as her partner back in 1963, came up with a marketing plan based on the Bible, the numbers in the Bible, and she walked it out like a strong woman. She was told in 1963, because her husband passed of a heart attack a month before they were opening the company. And so she was a woman in 1963, well before some of you were born, but just imagine, okay? So one of the questions is, how is it like to be a female entrepreneur? She was amazing. Everybody told her, the accountants, the lawyers, you can't do this. A woman can't do this. But she said, oh, yes, I can. I don't know if you know this, but her favorite deal was the bumblebee. Do you know why? The bumblebee has thin, frail wings and a heavy body. Hydrodynamically, it cannot fly, but it does it anyway. That's what entrepreneurs do. No matter what somebody says, you can't do it, watch me. You shouldn't do it, yes, I will. You set that determination, your mindset, get the courage, the persistence, the focus, and a plan, and you march forward for God to create in this world what He has you purposed to create.
And so the rest of that history lesson, very quickly, is tell us about the pink Cadillac, and then we want to hear
yes.
from Tina.
Okay, for me? Okay.
You go ahead, give us
Okay,
the
well,
short version of the pink
everybody
Cadillac.
says, when you say, are you in Mary Kay? Oh, do you drink that? Do you drive that pink Cadillac? Yes, I did. I drove every one of the cars. But that's not what it's about. She used that company to reach out to women, families across the world for God. The car doesn't matter. Nothing matters but what's your motivation. Who do you work for? I work for God. That's all.
And it was her sales executives who reached the pinnacle who received a pink Cadillac. So Tina, tell us about your career.
Well, I would answer the faith question by saying that before I started Mind Dance, I worked in radio. And so I worked for 104 KRBE and 740 KTRH on the AM side. And so when I started my business, my very first client was Chick-fil-A, and radio industry doesn't match the business of Chick-fil-A in the same culture. And I learned something really early on when I was starting my career through the Chick-fil-A brand, which is businesses are not Christian, because Christ did not die for a business, he died for people. And so it became really important for me to dedicate my business to people. And so at my company, when I think about hiring people, and I'm always the last interview when we hire someone, my filter for whether or not I want you to join my organization is, can I spend 8 hours in the car with you and still like you? And sometimes I make people drive to Dallas and back with me just to make sure if they're in the senior position, I'm like, we gotta go on a road trip, because I wanna know if I'm gonna like them enough to bring them into my work family. And so I have other people, by the way, that ask real serious business questions. But for me, I'm like, get in the car, we're gonna take a road trip. But so I think, when I think about how do you infuse what God has planned, yes, he has it planned for me and how that works in my business, but clarifying that he did not die for my business makes it so much easier for me to write a manifesto for my business that we did a few years back that lists 17 priorities in our business, and the first one is that we are family first. And I have 3 little girls, and so, well, they're not so little now, but they're still my babies. And so I went into business saying I'm never going to miss. And I set distinctive parameters around why my family was my very first priority. As a woman and a mom and a wife, like, my priority is to my husband. That's, I stood in front of my friends and my pastor and professed my love, but also my commitment. And in my head, I did not do that for my children. I committed to God that I would raise them in a Christian home and show them biblical values and teach them, but knowing one day that they would leave me. So I try not to be confused about what order, as you talk about, Lonnie, what order that I need to make my priority. So I think if I want to be that way, surely the people that work for me want to be that way. Whether that means their family, as in like their brothers and sisters, or maybe they have children, or maybe they have a dog. We just went through a situation where somebody's dog was so very important to them, and I had to consider that. So I want people that work for me to share my same values. And because I can hire in a way that makes me want to grow through people, I can filter that in a private company that their values meet mine. And that's just been a pinnacle that we don't pivot from at Mind Dance. And it's actually not that hard. And I think about the businesses that, well, they're doing it wrong. The people that chase after something that's not in the pursuit of what God has designed for you, because you have to make a profit or show up or say yes because the business said for you to say yes. I remember early in when I worked in the PR firm that my aunt died, and my mom said, we're going to San Antonio, and I was already an adult, and I was like, I can't, I have to be at work. And she said to me, you will never remember what you did at work today, but you will always remember that you missed that funeral. And I, young and naive, was, oh yeah, I hear you, and I didn't go. But I remember that. And I think God opens up an opportunity for you, and he's showing you. You just have to be ready to listen despite what people are telling you, because remember, you might not be in the place where he wants you to be. And so that might be the closed door. My boss didn't say I couldn't go, but she also didn't encourage me. And I think about, I was in the wrong place. Like, I want people to want to know in my organization that they can ask, because we want to live out the mission of the manifesto of being faithful stewards of all that we come in contact with during work and after work. So,
and that's a powerful story. You know, I think stories are how we learn. And that is so beneficial to be able to share experiences. So thank you for sharing that one. I would also ask that each of you maybe share a story related to how you have walked that Christian walk in making decisions for your company. Perhaps you've had vendors or clients who maybe you've had to walk away from. Do any of you have experiences you'd want to share along those lines? Looks like all three do.
Yes, we're all shy.
Go ahead, Bonnie.
In fact, I wanted to kind of take off of what you said, because my recommendation, because we have young people in the audience, is if you're in a position where things are being taken away from you, or you're being hindered from marching forth for God, or you're calling in your passion, then my recommendation is evaluate, learn, and walk away. Because you don't want to get off the path for too long. It takes a long time. You know, the path is a straight path for God. When you get off, you veer, then you get on, then you veer, then you get on, then you veer, then you get on. My recommendation is just go for it. Just go for it, okay? Now, as far as you asked how to integrate it, how do you deal with vendors? Well, I'm pretty bold. They say you can't ask, are you a Christian? Are you a this? Well, I do. I ask them, what church do you go to? Or what fellowship are you affiliated with? Because I want to know. If you don't know, you don't know how to deal with them. Because if they're not saved, I'm ready. I'll tell you. I'll show you, right? God is calling us right now to save souls. Okay? So that's one of them. I just like working with people of like kind. Now, don't think that I'm in a box. I'm way outside of a box. But you just have to know what you're doing and who you're working with, so you know how to work with them, okay? I'm very excited to tell you, I've brought quite a few people to salvation through business. And you're told, you can't do that. Yes, you can. We must do that. And I've walked away from people, customers, clients, vendors, that just don't want to get it. And you sow the seed, and you have to walk away and pray for them.
I think it's important to remind, as an entrepreneur, that you have a choice in the business.
Yes.
A lot of times, I think in my early days, I felt like I needed everything that came this way. Every hustle I went after, I had to get it, or every opportunity, I needed to land it. And I remember several years ago, I had this client that was amazing, and I loved them, but the way he spoke to his people was unacceptable, and his people tolerated it. And one day, it just became really clear to me that I don't want to work with people like that. And he never spoke to me like that, but we had lots of conversations about, hey, this is making me uncomfortable, and we went down the road, and we talked, and I gave him references to books and things that I was reading, and it just didn't get any better. And then one day, I just decided, I'm going to fire him. And you don't think that you can. And actually, to be truthful with you, I've fired a friend before, and it was a lot like a firing of an employee. I sat her down, and I said, hey, you are not good for me, and you are not making me feel the best that I can feel, and I no longer can be friends with you. And I think that's sort of awkward. It was awkward for me to say, but it was necessary for me to just sever that. We can be in control of that. We don't have to take every hustle. You don't have to accept every job. You don't have to tolerate the way people feel, or the way people make you feel, if it's not representative of who you want to be. Because just when you think about where God wants you on his path, I mean, he's showing you the behavior that comes your way that you don't like, and that reaction is a whisper saying, this isn't who I want to be or how I want to become. So it felt amazing the day that I fired that client, and he did not understand, and he came back about a year later and said, I've done this, 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 and this, and I would love to work with you again. And I said, I am happy to coach you or consult with you, but I cannot accept you as a client, because I had moved on from that. But a valuable lesson that I'll never forget. You can fire your friends, and you can fire your clients.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure, and then we're going to hear from Leah.
Yeah, and I apologize. Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, John Maxwell all say you are who you surround the 5 people you most surround yourself with. Remember that. And then the second thing is, a friend of mine tried to convince me that he was making a ton of money because he was planning to go up to heaven with a wheelbarrow full of gold. But he got to the gates and discovered that the streets were made of gold. No comment.
So I missed the faith question, and I'm going to go on that one first, and then I'm going to go into the next one, and I'll pull them together pretty tightly. But faith, as a business owner, being 5 years in, faith is not a me question. Since I'm married, faith is something that's had to be my husband squarely next to me on the faith piece of it. And, for me, faith was one of those things that was like a mystical word for a while. I just genuinely didn't. I heard it at church all the time. People talked about it. I know maybe nobody agrees with me on this, but there was a season in my life when I had no idea what faith meant. I just knew people were like, have faith. And I was like, I'm going to have faith. And I had no idea what to do with that. And then I heard this sermon at Second. And I remember a red chair on stage, and it was Ben Young, and he said, this chair, this is going to teach you faith. And I would tell you, every single one of you that are sitting are taking an act of faith at this moment, especially if you pick your feet up, because you put your whole weight on that chair. And faith is action. Faith is taking action and believing that something's going to keep you up. And for me, I've really kind of gone back to that analogy as a business owner over and over again. And, being 5 years in, we bootstrapped it. No funding, we bootstrapped the whole thing. And, I remember, and there's a saying, if any of you aren't want to go into entrepreneurship, and you do, you'll hear it. The saying is cash is king for a small business, because cash flow is tight. And when you're funding it and your pay fuels your family, it can be scary. And I remember my husband and I, outside, I think it was year 2 or 3, we had funded payroll because we had some employees at that point. We funded payroll for those employees, hadn't paid myself in a while. Funded their payroll, and it was after Harvey, so that's whatever period it was. My clients were all about 2-3 months late. And I remember seeing his face as he walked across the street to the mailbox. And we still, at that point, didn't even have a P.O. box. All the checks were coming to our house. And I remember seeing his face, and it was just this face of hope heading to the mailbox, and just this face of fear coming back. And I commend him, because that fear never stayed long. He was always that force that said, you've got this. Like, this is a God's call in our life. And, that pursuing or choosing entrepreneurship was not a one-time choice. That was a continual choice, and it has been a continual choice. And that, faith, that action, that putting our full weight on God, we really believe that entrepreneurship and this business, and using this business in a God-honoring way and impacting the world with it, is a calling on our life, and he's going to figure it out. And so he's going to fund that payroll. And I have fired clients based on faith, and it can be scary, but when you put your weight on him, he makes it happen. And when he doesn't, then that's not the path anymore, and you have to be willing to kind of diverge. But thankfully, God willing, and praise God, I love it. I love this path. And then to go into how like with vendors and clients and employees, one of the things I did early on, it was kind of naive, but it was smart. So has anybody ever gone up to somebody that has a tattoo that's in another language and asked them, what does that mean? Anybody? Okay, I'm not the only one. That would be really awkward. But so some people have. You go up, you see a tattoo, it's in a different language, and you're like, hey, what's that mean? And they don't just tell you what it means in the words, they tell you what it means in their heart, what experience happened, and why they have that tattooed on their body. And so 15,000 cubits is obscure, and very obscure. And it doesn't matter who we encounter. They always say, what does that mean? And, that completely opens the door, and it flies wide open into an opportunity to share my faith. And the other thing that, interestingly, it does is that my employees share that story as well, and they share that faith mission. And so that's my gate. It's real easy. Every time I meet clients, every time I meet vendors, every time I introduce myself to a potential employee in an interview, the first thing I talk about is what 15,000 cubits means, how it came about, And you just gauge it from there. And at that point, it's their choice, because they know. And that's what I would say about it.
I want to remind you all to keep your questions in mind. I'm sure you have some right now, but give us just a few more minutes. We have a few other things, few topics we've talked about that we want to discuss, but we will have a time for a Q&A. And so next, a topic that I think is very dear to all three women and probably to you all in the audience is mentors. I don't know if you realize, but January is National Mentorshipping Month. Every month or every day has a national perspective. Well, this is one. So I would love for each of you to talk about mentorship. Be it someone who mentored you or someone that you're pouring into that you're mentoring. Because I think we have a lot of people, regardless of the age, it does not defy where you are in your career or your age as it relates to having a mentor or serving as a mentor. Leah, do you want to start in with that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So mentorship is huge for me. I didn't realize I needed one at first. And like I said, I was mentored for 5 years and I didn't realize it was happening. And, if I had, I probably would have blown it because then I would have been way too eager and she would have been like, she's crazy. But I was blessed with mentorship early on and I've gone back and thanked her for it. When I realized I needed mentorship, I couldn't find it. When I started my business, I couldn't find a Christian female business owner, and I had my vision of what my mentor was going to look like. I thought that she was going to be a female business owner, and she was going to be further along the path than me, and that it was going to be perfect, and we were going to fall in love, and she was going to mentor me, and she was, she's going to be my best friend and come to the family dinners. But the reality of it is my husband saw me pray for 2 years for a mentor, and that bright, shiny box never showed up. And what ended up happening is that God's vision for something like that is so much better than what our vision is. And he ended up presenting many mentors to me for many different pieces of my journey. And, I had a piece here and a piece here and a piece here, and it was this pie that kind of came together. And I remember a moment after lots of prayers and all of this evolved over the course of a year, my husband was like, "You've got so many mentors now." And I do, and I'm so blessed by that. But, I think through that prayer journey and through desiring that mentorship, there's a book I picked up. John C. Maxwell, Great Leaders Ask Great Questions, is a book that's all about mentorship. And some key facts that I learned, and it's fantastic, some key facts that I learned in that book are that, many times, so has anybody in the audience, raise your hand if you've been around somebody that you would really like to be your mentor for more than 15 minutes? Raise your hand. Okay, so you've had a mentor, potentially. What the book talks about is that those moments, those interactions, your mentorship that you have, mentorship from somebody, is them pouring into you. So if you're open and aware of the opportunities that you have to be around somebody that can pour into you, be open in that moment and absorb what you've got. Because the fact of the matter is, many of these mentors that you want to pour into your life, A, many other people probably want that as well. And B, they're really busy. They're really, really busy. And so the other thing that really hit me, and when I started to find these mentors, was that, in John C. Maxwell's book, he talks about go into it with a service mentality. These business owners and these leaders are busy. And so I encourage you, if you're looking for a mentor, identify that person and then find out, what do you have to offer them that you can support them with without asking for anything. And then you build that relationship, because I never had a mentor enter my life through a contract or a written agreement. Every mentor I've had has been a result of me extending out offers and extending out service and showing that respect and honor towards them. And then after developing a relationship, they chose to mentor me. And that's another thing that I think happens, is that I think we sometimes look at mentorship as an entitlement, and really it's a privilege. And I genuinely started feeling that way. And as I've kind of been poured into, I've felt the desire to pour out. And yesterday, actually, it was a 40-hour training to become a state certified advocate for victims of domestic abuse, violence, and rape, and sexual abuse. And that 40-hour training was hard. It was hard on my husband. It was hard on me. It was 5 to 9, Tuesday through Thursday, 3 weeks in a row. And I remember waking up in the morning and saying, God, just multiply my day, multiply our energy. And love, he will admit that I came home more energized those days than I ever did. And it was because I was learning how to mentor these ladies. And my company is actually developing a mentorship program, a 6-month program for, it's not just women, I learned, but for victims of this awful stuff, this darkness. We're developing a mentorship and apprenticeship program for the junior level, entry level, digital marketing and marketing career field to teach them and mentor them through their pain and through restarting their life, kind of that butterfly analogy. And so taking steps to be active in getting those mentors, and then taking steps to pour out, because if you just pour into yourself, that's not the point of it. You got to pour out too.
That's great. Bonnie?
Okay, each of us has special gifts and talents given to us by God. I don't think we realize sometimes how many mentors we have right in our midst. My husband has been a great mentor to me in ways that I never dreamed possible. My daughter has been a mentor. She's got special gifts and talents that I don't have. My brother has been an exceptional mentor in my life. My sister-in-law, my dear friend sitting right over there, has been a mentor. So look to the people that you respect and you know that they have knowledge and wisdom, and listen with your full heart. And be quiet and let God guide you. But there's so many people out there. John Maxwell is excellent. But look back. I look back in my career in corporate. I was mentored by wonderful bosses. Then started my business. I was mentored by customers, clients that were wise. Mary Kay, ultimate Mary Kay Ash. Now in this Monate Global, John Maxwell is one of our mentors. Les Brown. So there are people out there everywhere in the ministry that can mentor you and help you find out who you are and how you can be the best that you can be. Is there anyone in this room that does not want to be the best that you can be while you're here on earth? I don't think so. Just look for the mentors that he puts in your path and appreciate them and listen to them.
Oh, such good advice. I might add the perspective that I think that mentorship doesn't need to be a huge, long commitment. I think early in my career, I was looking for the one that could fill me up and stay with me and help me grow. And what I really learned is that I have complexities in my business that need independent mentorship. So recently, I've had a people issue in my business about how I want to grow and where I want to grow. And so I picked up the phone and called Jamie Roots. He's the president of the Houston Texans. I did not know him, but somebody told me he was great with his people. And I called him, and I bribed him with Chick-fil-A. And he accepted 1 hour with me. And I get 1 hour a year with him. And it always happens on Martin Luther King Day. And he fills me up, and I get to utilize that. I see him now in social circles, and I get to pick up a little bit along the road. But I think when people think mentorship, they think huge commitments or perfect fits. And I think when I have little things, I think to myself, I need somebody, and I find the person that can solve that problem. Mm-hmm. And what happens is that not only am I developing a mentorship, but then they expose me to other pieces of their business that actually fuel growth in my business. The other thing that I would say is that I also have a millennial mentor, and I think that was probably the wisest thing that I've done in the last 5 years of growth in my business, because I'm reaching up to people who have been there and who have done that, yet my company is full of people. I would say 80% of the people that work for me might be my age or younger, and so a friend of mine who works for AT&T, and they have millennial mentorships in their program at AT&T Sports, and he told me, and I was like, I need a millennial mentor. And Jamie, who is my mentor, sent me to a person who was phenomenal, and now I have a millennial mentor, and we meet every other month, and she teaches me all kinds of things that I don't know, apps and keywords, and what should I be watching on Netflix, and she teaches me things that I just don't know.
And then she wants from me, that's as our partnership, she wants from me things she doesn't know. And so that's what we do over 1 hour every other month. The other thing that I would say is ask big, like huge, big asks. I am really enamored with entrepreneurs that have started from nothing, like self-made entrepreneurs. And so I wrote a note to Sarah Blakely. She's the founder of Spanx, and I was just super enamored with her contraptions, if you will. And I just said, I want to know what pursued you past the door-to-door photocopying and fax machine selling to where you are now. And I told her just a brief paragraph about me, and I said to her, I want 30 minutes. I have 3 questions. I'll come prepared. I'll take great notes, and I will leave at the end of the 30 minutes. And I got a letter back. And it said no, but it said, I don't have the capacity right now, would love to keep you on my radar. Here are 3 things that you can do to further yourself. And she gave me a book and then 2 bits of advice. And I just thought, I still have that, it's hanging in my office. And I just thought, you have to ask big or you'll never get anywhere. And so if she came back and she said, no way, Jose, I would have been like, okay, well, but what did it take for me? Handwritten note. The last thing that I would say is, when you think about mentors and you think about the people who you want to ask, like Sarah, she's busy, there's no doubt. When you think about people that you want to surround yourself with, it's because they're doing something that's inspiring you, and they are very busy. But I would caution us all to not say someone's no for them. We tend to do that a lot. And in entrepreneurship, I do that. I second guess, and I'm like, that'll never work. And last year, one of the things that we took on in our business was not saying no. I don't want to steal it from somebody, because very busy people have yeses, and it's just a matter of where they want to give their yes. And so I mentor people now, and my team's always like, she's so busy, she's never going to say yes. But you don't know what's important to somebody, and so don't steal somebody's yes, because it may be in there and it might be waiting for you, and you don't know how God might want to put that together for you.
Can I add one thing? All of us that serve God have servants' hearts, and that's mentorship. Everybody in your path is a possible way to mentor. It can be when you're checking out at a grocery store. It could be getting your car washed. Everybody wants to be mentored in one way or another. So when you let your servant's heart reach out to them and just let them know that they're special and that you care about them, and you can do that just with a smile or a compliment or whatever, that's mentoring. And I think that's something that's important for us to remember. It's not just a business thing. It's a life thing to mentor people.
I would add this funny quote that we talk about a lot at Mind Dance, which is true. Kathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, said this. Do you know how you can tell when someone needs encouragement? Does anybody know? It's when they're breathing.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I just think about the simplicity of that, and think about we all need it and we can all give it, and it could be a high five or a hug, or it could be I'm going to sit down with you. So just to piggyback off
Yes.
that, we're
One
all
last
breathing.
thing. If you don't know that the Greek derivation of the word enthusiasm is God within, and if you meet someone and they're not very enthusiastic, then just give them a little bit of God.